romantic tradition called for, and while the music lasted, the brave music of a military band playing the swinging little tunes that would keep reality at bay, they could maintain their chosen attitudes, changing tragedy into a dreamy, unobtrusive melancholy that would do no more than highlight the evening's gaiety. It was at one of these dances that a young woman found herself chatting with a general officer whose only son had recently been killed in some outpost skirmish up the river. She offered her sympathy. The general bowed. "Yes, madam. Very sad. Very sad. He was the last of his race. Do you waltz?" The dance lasted until the small hours, and at last the ambulances went off through the sleeping camp, and there was a final tinkle of chatter and laughter and "so glad you could come" under the frosty stars as the guests went to their tents. And the next afternoon everybody reassembled in and around a reviewing stand in an open field for a grand review of the 2nd Army Corps, with the commanding general of the Army of the Potomac taking the salute as the long ranks of veterans went past. Like the dance, the review was an occasion, a quiet reminder, if anybody needed one, that dances and bright officers and everything else rested finally on the men in the ranks, who went to no parties and who could be turned out to parade their strength for the admiration of the officers' ladies. It was noted that the Major General commanding, George Gordon Meade, was in rare good humor. He was lean and grizzled, with a great hawk nose and a furious temper, and his staff had learned to read omens in his behavior. When the army was about to do something, he gave off sparks, and those around him did well to step quietly and rapidly. But today the omens were good. He was light-hearted, making small jokes and telling stories, enjoying the review in the company of the guests, and acting the part of a major general who had nothing in particular on his mind. Staff observed and took heart. Some weeks of quiet must lie ahead of the army. In this judgment the staff officers were wrong. There was a movement afoot, and General Meade did not wholly approve of it. He was at ease, perhaps, merely because the imminent movement would involve only a fragment of the army, and because it did not seem likely to have any great importance one way or the other. Visible sign that something was in the wind was the presence at this infantry review of the 3rd Cavalry Division of the Army of the Potomac, led by Brigadier General Judson Kilpatrick. Kilpatrick was in his mid-20s, young for a brigadier, a wiry, restless, undersized man with blank eyes, a lantern jaw, and an imposing growth of sand-colored sideburns. A man about whom there were two opinions. A member of Meade's staff wrote in his diary that it was hard to look at Kilpatrick without laughing, and the common nickname for him around Army headquarters was "Kill Cavalry." His division fought well and paraded well. At this review it put on a noble mock charge, a thundering, yelling gallop across the dead grass of the plain, troopers rising in their stirrups with gleaming sabers extended, all very stimulating for the visiting ladies. But its camp was usually poorly policed and in bad order. Its horses were overworked and badly groomed, the clothing and equipments of the men had a used-up look, and its carbines were mostly rather dirty. Yet the man had a quality, somehow. In combat he was valiant, and he was afraid of nothing, except possibly of the final ounce of the weight of personal responsibility. And he was slightly unusual among the officers of this army in that he neither drank nor played cards. At West Point he had been noted as a gamecock, anxious to use his spurs. Born in New Jersey, he was ardent for the Union and against slavery, and he had had many fistfights with other gamecock cadets from the South. William Tecumseh Sherman, with his genius for brutal overstatement, may have summed him up when, a bit later in the war, he asked to have Kilpatrick assigned to him for the march to the sea, explaining, "I know that Kilpatrick is a hell of a damned fool, but I want just that sort of man to command my cavalry on this expedition." Kilpatrick had ambitions. It was his belief that if he survived